And we are live, everybody. Welcome to our TLC post show.
I am John Pollock along with Wai Ting, but we have pulled up a third chair for the TLC post show. Mike Murray occupying that, providing some TLC to this post show.
I'm the C to the T and the L.
You are, yes. We have
Ooh, I like it. I like that.
Ting, and I don't know if I'm representing L here. I'm lower on my seat. That's what I feel like right now next to you guys. We've got a packed show coming up. It was a busy weekend in professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. We're going to be diving into the TLC show that went down earlier tonight from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and afterwards we will be taking your phone calls. A once in a lifetime opportunity, the chance to talk to Mike Murray. The world is awaiting.
Lining up. I can see.
Everybody is dialing up. 732-800-4423. Not taking calls now, so don't call, but we will be taking them after we are done extensively reviewing tonight's offering from the WWE. You can also Skype in, just search for Post Wrestling. And I don't think we should waste any time because we also want to share some thoughts. I know, Mike, you got to see the NWA pay-per-view on Saturday night and ROH that also went down on Friday night. So we will get into that and welcome everybody's feedback. But tonight was an interesting show from the company, going in with not a loaded show by any stretch. This felt like we are obligated to do our yearly TLC pay-per-view in the month of December, and this is what we are going to put forward. No world title matches. We had a world champion represented on this show, kind of. One of his alter egos, and interesting match layout as well. So going into the pre-show, earlier in the day, they announced the addition of Humberto Carrillo and Andrade, a rematch from Raw this past week that got over very well on Monday night, so they were going to try and redo that. The panel consisted of Jonathan Coachman, Booker T, Charlie Caruso, and David Otunga. And early on, they interviewed Bobby Lashley and Lana. And Lashley said that one of the reasons that he is now with Lana is that all this time in WWE, he never had any allies. Take that, Leo Rush. And Lana said they are the victims. And then this just turned into everyone talking over one another. Lana tore down Charlie for being a wannabe Renee who does her job worse than Renee after Renee was promoted to backstage, and your questions are stupid.
I think if Lana's goal is to make people hate her, it's something that clearly comes very naturally for her, where I think they just allow her to make sure that nobody gets one over her, and so in order to, I guess, stand up for herself, she just swarms usually by talking over other people. And we've seen this with Kevin Owens. We saw it here with Charlie. And if the goal in the end is to make people dislike Lana, I guess that is a successful tactic.
Maybe this is going to be a long-term program that bears itself out. Maybe they're going to build towards a match. Yes. And then Charlie reveals that she is
dating Rusev, of course.
She is Lana's sister.
Oh!
And it's a Caruso swerve.
Great.
That's my only one tonight. Then, in the aftermath of this interview, the panel is left to dissect this Rusev, Lana, Lashley issue. And David Otunga notes, I am an expert on this type of situation.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow, that's certainly calling out his, own experiences. And then they moved on from that. The Revival interrupted, and they just cut down Booker T in this promo, saying Stevie Ray was his better half. That this is actually a really good promo, especially from Scott Dawson. And Booker T is just seething, and he waits for the Revival to leave, and he says, sometimes you go down to their level in order to bring them up to yours, and I wasn't about to do that here in my role. I could have kicked their ass, and it would have been all over the internet, but Booker T didn't do that. So he showed restraint here.
You think this was building to anything, or was it just...
I'm just looking at WrestleMania. We have Lana, Charlie Caruso, Booker T, and Stevie Ray versus the Revival.
I think it's the next Survivor Series. It's the next Invasion. It's the announcers taking on the wrestlers.
That is it. Broadcast supremacy. Andrade Humberto Carrillo was our lone match on the Kickoff show. Did not mind that we only had one match here. Andrade flew into the corner, missed with a knee, and came up at one point and was busted up around his left eye. And this began a night where, man, there were some painful looking injuries on this show, and Andrade being the first. Carrillo got hung from the ropes. Just, I guess they had like some sort of substance or like a super glue on the second rope because Carrillo couldn't let go. And he had to take a double foot stomp. It was unfortunate, but he was stuck there. Andrade then missed with a spinning elbow. He came up and he had all these marks over his chest. Andrade looked like this guy had just been through a ladder match. This was the most vicious kickoff I can recall. Andrade hit the double knees. Vega got onto the apron. Both men avoided running into her. And then it culminated with Carrillo hitting a super reverse Hurricane Rana from the top. And then this gorgeous looking top rope moonsault for the win in 12 minutes, 34 seconds. I thought really good start to the show. By the end, I can say one of the best matches on the show.
Yeah.
Easily.
I mean, I think these two are so talented. You know, even if the rest of the show went pretty flawlessly, I think this still would have had a really good chance of being up there because they had a great match on Raw. I thought this was as good as it, and I thought Carrillo ended up coming out of it looking tremendous. Beautiful moonsault at the end right there, and they're putting him over strong.
Yeah, it was a fun match. It was tight, unlike some of the other ones that come around later on. But
we're going to get there. But at least at 6:45 p.m. Eastern time, I was fine.
Things were looking up.
Things were looking good on this show. Aleister Black cut a promo on Mr. Murphy and said how they could end up doing this over and over again, but tonight he is just going to end it with one swift black mass as Mr. Murphy fades to black. Kind of calling a shot here. This was kind of the match layout. The pay-per-view began with the New Day and the Revival.
Oh, by the way, in the Andrade match, he and Zelina basically teased.
They did the same as Monday, where, the two are arguing and Zelina is getting frustrated with Andrade losing. And I think Jerry Lawler brought up that this could turn into a Rusev-Lana situation.
Of course.
I don't know who becomes Bobby Lashley. Maybe Umberto. Or somebody else.
Aleister Black.
No one would believe that. Ladder match kicked things off. This was a ladder match because they needed a ladder match, and we got the announcement on Friday that this is going to be a ladder match. And you know, when you watch these, like this was a match where these four guys, they all worked really hard, and you go back to people like Edge, who has brought up the years off his career that he thinks those ladder matches took from him, and I can't help but think of that when I watch this. That as good as this was, am I going to think of this ladder match ever after this? Will this be an important ladder match in history? Absolutely not. And I think you kind of watch these ladder matches with that in mind.
How many do you actually think about, though?
Well, I think that tells you like where the concept is at this point. It's a pretty high bar to stand out and be memorable, and it's guys taking a lot of damage to try
to have that memorable match.
To try, and I think it's just the bar's very high, and I don't I really enjoyed this match for what it was, but I don't think we're going to think about this match again after tonight.
In argument's sake, Edge's ladder matches, I think, earlier on in his career is what made him.
It is.
Right?
There
It put
was
him
a
on the
time
map.
period these stood out, and now we have a pay-per-view named after this, where this is just the requisite ladder match.
And they announced
the
it
show
2 days before the show that it was going to be a ladder match. Right?
Like this wasn't even the prime match that was supposed to feature ladders. But a lot of great stuff in here. Big E missed a splash off the edge of the apron, landing on the ladder. Kingston followed with a trust fall that got caught, and then he got driven into the ladder. And then they worked over Big E's balls. They drove the ladder into his groin. Then they double drop kicked it. And I think Big E and Bully Ray, who sold their balls better this weekend, Mike?
I'm going to go with Bully Ray this
Okay.
weekend, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Big E's was more believable.
I mean, cheese grater, though.
I don't know how believable I can't imagine how you would sell a cheese grater legit. So maybe he was being very realistic with that on Friday night. Kingston mounted a comeback. Crowd really was into Kofi. As we would see later in this show, this was an audience that they were very picky with what they got into, and I think got beaten down from this show. But Kofi was someone they really got behind throughout this match. He ended up getting stopped on the ladder, and they hit him with a shatter machine. Big E fought back, speared Wilder off the apron to the floor. Dawson then hit Big E with a superplex onto a ladder, and Big E fell off of the ladder, so they had to put him back on so Wilder could deliver a splash. Then we fast forward, all four are fighting on the ladders. Big E took Wilder off with a big ending. Kingston swung the titles into Dawson's head, and he plunges down, through a ladder to his demise, and Kofi grabs the tag titles. 19 minutes and 3 seconds, and I would say I think this ended up being the match of the show.
Yeah, you're probably right.
For
Looking
me,
back,
for me
yeah.
it was. I thought this ended up beating out the kickoff match. Those are my top 2 matches on this show, and
It's not a good sign.
They
when
were
they-
1-2 on
It's one of those things where like I had to really look back and think, is John right? Because like that, it's a little crazy to think about, like the level of risk we would go on to see the rest of this show and still have, I guess not met any other contenders for like match of the night.
No, just a variety of reasons that affected the matches after this, but I don't think anything really touched these first 2.
You're
honestly,
probably right. I thought this match was insane. They both took a great deal of risk. I thought it almost got to the point, and this would go on for the rest of the show, where I kind of got uncomfortable. Like I'd get way more uncomfortable later on, but like even in this match early on, I got kind of uncomfortable.
There's a lot of dangerous stuff.
Seeing some of the risk involved here of just guys like the worst part is that as you kind of mentioned, like the fact that these matches are happening for no reason other than the TLC match, it's no like crescendo within a storyline.
No.
It's just like people
You're not selling tickets.
People taking risks because precedent has been set in the past for you to expect a level of risk for this, and I think it's just a waste, honestly, of like these major bumps. But otherwise, if you're just watching in a vacuum, yes, it was a really entertaining match. I thought Kofi looked a lot like the Kofi of old, who kind of made his name doing like, really impressive, agile high spots that we kind of saw return to that. Biggie and Revival were also really great as well. But another problem I think I had though with this, and much like the other one, was that these ladder matches really feel like they're stunt shows rather than people going to try to grab the belts.
To get the belts, yeah.
Like there are plenty of opportunities where I felt like it made a lot more sense for people to go grab belts instead of setting up some contraption in the corner. And that was something that I think plagued both ladder matches.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I mean, you guys have both covered it. Both the unnecessary bumps and what does it mean for these careers, and what does it mean for the company to be doing this and in this match. But also, it was entertaining in a vacuum. But there's no storyline leading up to this. There's no reason for these belts to be put on a ladder.
We also would see that with 2 TLC matches, with the ladder match here, that they also kind of had to break up a lot of the stunts and stuff as well, and like weapons that would be utilized, that when you have multiple matches of this, you kind of have to spread things around as well. But that said, for this match, it delivered on what was advertised going in here. Kayla Braxton interviewed King Corbin backstage, and we go to Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black, a pretty important platform for these two to be on, that it was, how would the audience take to them? And the work was really solid in this, but the audience was checked out. And I think that was a big negative on the match. Murphy blasts him with this knee, and Black comes back with a series of kicks. Murphy then caught him on the apron, drove Black into the steps. Black comes up, he's bleeding from the nose, and the story of the match is that he took a knee to the jaw, and it was almost as though they were doing the Colby Covington story, that he was fighting with a broken jaw, even though he's bleeding from his nose. So, I mean, visually, you're watching something different than what the announcers are telling you is the injury.
Do you know anything of whether or not this, I guess the jaw portion might have been legit?
I don't think so, because it was just...
Samoa Joe was really adamant about it, and of course, like, Aleister was holding the jaw periodically, but...
and then they eventually started talking about the nose with the blood, and it was I think it was more like Lawler that was talking about
the nose was very obvious, but like Joe kept like hitting on the fact that his jaw was broken. In fact, like being adamant that I could see it up close, I can confirm that his jaw is broken. It's much harder to tell, but I still wonder if that would be something they would work, or if it could be legit.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll try and find out, but it was, certainly that was kind of the story they were going with on commentary, and Black was also, tending to it as well. They continued on here. We saw Black go for his Dragon Sleeper variation, and then Murphy responds and hits a series of cheeky Nando's kicks, and then a running sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count. Black blocked the Kamagoye, that does not have a name for Buddy Murphy's version. So Murphy fought off, hit the move, and then Black kicks out from it. Again, strong work here, but the crowd was it was a real struggle here. Murphy continues with kicks, and then Black sidesteps him, and out of nowhere hits the Black Mass for the win in 13 minutes and 40 seconds. And sort of going with that attention to the black mass that he can hit it at any point and it's over once he hits it. But I thought as a match, these two really clicked together. But I mean, you can't override the fact that the audience was really checked out of this.
Yeah, I guess I was less distracted by the calm crowd because I was really into the match. I thought it was an incredible match. You know, these two have tremendous chemistry as far as their styles go. Like really fast, hard-hitting, great-looking strikes that, you know, similar haircuts too that matched up absolutely perfect.
That's
with
the
one another.
part of the tail of the tape they don't get to all the time.
I definitely agreed that I found myself a little bit checked out at the beginning, but like once I saw the blood come out of Aleister, like and this was kind of much the case for many of the matches tonight. Once I saw blood, like I just found myself drawn in.
Hooks you in, right?
How did the blood occur? Like, you know, is this guy actually okay? And the rest of the match, despite whatever injury Aleister Black might have been dealing with, was, I thought, executed pretty flawlessly.
It was, you were right about everything. Like fast, hard, strong. You know, these two did really get a chance to shine, and it's not something, you know, they've had in the last year.
Where do you see them going with Aleister Black as they get into Rumble season, Mania? Like, do you see him having a prime spot on Raw? Because he has certainly been protected, and whether you can say these
Protected or forgotten.
well, there's definitely an argument for both, and I think there's been examples of both. But you know, they've given this guy promo time. Whether that's helped them or not, that can certainly be a debatable point. But he is someone that you can see he is not someone that they are just looking at as just some throwaway guy. I see them seeing an important role for him.
I mean, there has been a little bit of goofiness to this whole knock on the door, and I don't think it's completely worked. But it hasn't been disastrous where you can't redeem him. You can't pull him out and you can't make something of him. I think, you know, if you told me this guy was going to win the Rumble, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's an open door right now. Excuse the pun, so to speak.
Well, you know, they desperately need to make stars at the moment.
Yes.
And Aleister Black is kind of presented as goofy as some of the promos are. Like once it's bell time, it's like this guy's like the Terminator.
And when you look back at when he was in NXT, I mean, my kids watching, they're like, this guy's like the Undertaker, right? And we're talking, you know, an 8 and a 4-year-old at the time, right? But like, there's something about his look, there's something about his entrance and that sort of mystique that he carries with him. But he can back it up in the ring, right? When it comes time for the action and the, you know, the athletic abilities.
There was also yet another announcer angle shot here because we had Jerry Lawler note that Aleister Black has his family tattooed on his body and said that's on his back. He's got a photo of his mother.
I mean, those are like Lawlerisms that you would have definitely expected at any point in his career.
It was also met with silence because Vic
nobody
and
said
Joe
anything.
were not touching it. It was
I think we should just be happy that the magistrator is still not around, where he would use the pen to like draw over top of like a still photo of like a replay.
He'd probably get in trouble for that.
Anyway, I definitely see Aleister having a decent role at Mania. Like of all the Raw debuts, I feel like they've been holding him back a lot in order to have a prime spot for him to be focused on. Unfortunately, those delays have just come for whatever reason. So hopefully Mania season coming up, they have something solid for him in that, you know, I firmly see him at like a U.S. title level.
Yeah, I would say on the Raw side, to me, it's like Kevin Owens, it's like they've gone with him. They pulled back. We've seen them go. Black is like a fresh person that you can go with as a babyface or a heel at this point, really. I would say for the Rumble, I could totally see him being like a Final Four guy and really cementing him.
Yeah, for sure.
And
We're getting the giant spot, you know, eliminating a bunch of people.
yeah, and we'll see, you know, how far they go with him. I hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle in Mania season, that he does have a really prominent position for Mania because he has that potential, I feel. Then we move on to Charlie, who interviewed Rusev, and he said that after divorcing Lana before they had children, it now means he doesn't have to pay alimony. And this got a pop from the crowd in Minneapolis. Like, yeah, alimony sucks. He said he is back, he is single, but he is not alone because every day is Rusev Day.
Go back to that. Yeah.
I feel like the audience is like really gravitating towards Rusev as sort of this like everyday guy, you know, like this everyday like mid-30s or however old he is, average male who like has to deal with things like divorce and doesn't want to have to pay alimony or anything else. He wears like everyday T-shirts.
I really like the
right?
T-shirts he's been rocking during this.
He
this
looks like a
whole
typical
span,
American.
yeah.
Like he is like an Americanized,
or like a tourist,
citizen.
like somebody who's come here,
Tourist,
like to
sure.
North America and is like bought all the tourist shirts. Right?
Yeah.
You know what's also less pronounced is just watching that SummerSlam card that we've got to review this week from 2015. How much weight this guy's lost.
Yeah, he's really slimmed down.
He
was.
was he was the tank at
Yeah.
WrestleMania 2015 compared to now. He is so much slimmer than like the guy was just so thick before, and now just like he's really slimmed down, and it's been like it's noticeable if you've been watching, but once you see like before and after, it's a pretty significant size decrease. Our next match, the star of this match was Kentucky Fried Chicken.
The sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up because people might not have noticed. It was very hidden the
Yeah.
way that they
Very
tried
subtle.
to
Yeah.
promote this. I mean, they
Very
subtly put a table on the floor with these four actors out of
Fans.
central casting. that
No,
were
no,
placed
they were
as-
in the audience. They were fans. Come on.
Yeah.
They
they're
won a
all-
contest.
Yes.
Chicken contest.
If they actually pick some random fans, like I definitely feel. Obviously, you're being facetious there, but like imagine if they picked actual random fans from the crowd.
It would be insane. Can you imagine like just 4 people showed up and like, okay, just behave yourself,
But just
and,
like-
and watch your chicken.
But I mean, like,
You would 100% pick a vegetarian by mistake. And it
Yeah.
would come out on Twitter the
but
next
it would
day.
be that. But like, I feel like a lot of effort goes into making sure that you don't pick somebody who looks like they might only eat KFC, if you know what I mean. You don't want to pick a bad, stereotypically looking junk food eating type of fan. Like I say
At a
that
wrestling show?
that's what I mean.
Right?
Like, I think we're at a wrestling show. I think the chances of that are higher than ever. And I love KFC. But like I mean, what I'm trying to say is I thought it was very strategic, the people that they actually chose to sit at.
I would say everything about this segment was strategic.
Let's go- hold on a second.
That was
I'm
the
just gonna-
word of the segment.
I gotta like turn the corner here. Popeyes or KFC?
Popeyes.
That's my guy.
Oh my God, no.
What did it
No
say on
fight.
the side of the chicken? They had like a slogan. Fuck salad?
From before there was a time, from before the time there was salad, was on the
Yes.
side of the bucket.
Really?
Yes, that was the slogan.
Yeah,
It
they've
was
got
on
a
the side
slogan
of
where
the
it's like
bucket.
taking a knock at
I
all
like
these
stupid
salad eating
vegetarians.
I
hippies.
kind of like
Ooh.
fuck salad though. It's a bit better.
I was telling John while this was going on that about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, my wife and I went on a road trip down to Florida, and we went to the Colonel Sanders Museum.
No way.
Yep.
Why in Florida? I guess he's
On the
from
way
Florida.
down.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
as
In
we were
Kentucky,
driving.
then.
In Kentucky, yeah.
He showed me photos.
I showed it.
It's
we
much
looked
closer
it
to a
up.
pit stop than it is a museum.
It's true. It's not like a marble museum, but if you're on the road on the 94 going down to Florida, it's a nice stop for half an hour, Yeah,
2 times I've gotten food poisoning from KFC.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So anyway, that could have been on the side of the bucket of chicken. So as these fans in quotations are eating their chicken and potatoes with gravy, the Viking Raiders come out and they're wearing purple. So the Minnesota Vikings tie-in that gets them immediately over as baby faces to this crowd. Anderson and Gallows come in to answer the open challenge, cutting a promo. They insulted Minnesota, showed off their tag team trophy that they won at Crown Jewel, and brought up that the Viking Raiders' only loss was to them at that show in Saudi Arabia. So there was a perfectly natural reason to have this match. I was just kind of surprised that they made this an open challenge as opposed to you had your story in place. This was actually a perfectly logical reason for a title match as opposed to just people guessing who could the opponents be when it was a very predictable opponents and justifiable ones.
Are you saying you were a little disappointed when the OC came out?
I don't think anyone was like throwing their fist in the air, popping champagne bottles that Gallows and Anderson, dude, at TLC.
AJ was.
They alluded to it on Raw. Like it felt like this was already in the works back then. The only thing I could think of was that perhaps because the finish ended up the way it was, maybe they didn't want to set people's expectations too high, like they were going to get a full Gallows and Anderson versus the OC match, and that they were going to rob them of that. Anyway.
Everyone thought, man, rock and roll. So Viking Raiders, first off, Gallows and Anderson got the advantage on Eric for a while, made the tag to Ivar, who got shoved from the top by Gallows. Ivar then went for a handspring back elbow. Didn't quite fully connect with the other two. They hit the Viking Experience on Anderson, but Gallows broke up the cover. Eric then gets tossed into the WWE Universe, which means he's gone forever. Ivar hit a suicide dive onto both Gallows and Anderson as the count reached 10, and all four are counted out at 8:29. And then the big spot is they continue to fight on the floor, and Carl Anderson goes through the KFC table.
I was so disappointed that, like, the moment they started brawling outside with the KFC in the background, I was like, somebody's going through that KFC. So when they actually did the spot at the end, like, I thought the fans were getting into it. They were chanting KFC. And then, like, Eric, like, swipes the KFC off the table before doing the spot. Like,
He's a Popeyes guy.
And that really disappointed me. I wanted to see somebody go through
He's straight edge, right?
the 7 herbs, secret herbs and spices, the
Does
gravy.
KFC cross the line?
I don't know. It's not exactly healthy material you're putting into your body, right? Like,
Give
no
me the-
offense to Colonel Sanders.
No, I'll take a beer.
The match itself was very forgettable. Like, not a match. I
A
really
Raw match
care to
complete
see.
with a inset commercial. So
Oh, yeah.
that's what we got. Kayla interviewed The Miz to confirm that Monroe Sky was fine and she was safe. His family has been moved to a secure location tonight. He said that Bray Wyatt violated the sanctity of his home. And tonight, Bray Wyatt is not fighting The Miz or a WWE superstar, even though I'm still going to do my trademark goddamn entrance. He is fighting a husband and a father protecting his family. Because I'm awesome. No. He didn't at the end, but he might as well when he did that entrance later. We'll get to that.
I've been a fan actually of The Miz, like, throughout the storyline, but this was definitely like a sampling of, like, overacting that was really comical.
When Booker T was just on the pre-show, and I will venture to guess was just simply going here to describe The Miz in this frantic state, and this guy standing up for his family. He said he's like a badass Ryan Seacrest, and there's nothing that is going to put fear through your body if you're Bray Wyatt than a badass Ryan Seacrest.
Seeing Ryan Seacrest in, like, a dark alley, imagine that.
There's some clangers tonight in some of the commentary.
Dude, Samoa Joe like has Pollock syndrome with some of his one-liners that he had tonight. Like, he had some zingers on commentary tonight. Roman Reigns, King Corbin, TLC match. So I was surprised because, we were discussing this, Mike, and both of us assumed this would be going on last. And the second we saw this, we both assumed this probably means Corbin's going over in this. And we would be correct in that sense. So Corbin takes control. This was a long match. He attacked with chair shots, and chairs were kind of the extent of this, other than an announce desk spot where Corbin got put through with a Samoan drop. Corbin just playing heel. To his credit, like, the crowd responded to, like, the heel antics of Corbin when he did, like, his shitty Roman Reigns pose.
Booed him out of the building sometimes.
Like, he did get heat here. We go, and Reigns does, after putting him through the desk with the Samoan drop, he runs the entire perimeter of the ring, and then out of nowhere, Dolph Ziggler hits him with a super kick. I thought that was really well timed. Like, you did not see this guy show up, and I guess it came from under the ring.
Under the ring is what they suggested, yeah.
Yes. He was also wearing a Glorious t-shirt, but then promptly tore it off. So I don't know if he was trying to put together a silent protest or just quickly tore it off before anyone could notice what he was doing. The Revival then showed up. They get hit with Superman punches. Reigns then takes them all out with a tope, including the security that's all working for Corbin. We learn that Roman Reigns has 0 friends.
Yeah.
That's what I took from this. Nobody comes to help him.
Big leader in the locker room, that guy. Big leader.
I suppose the end spot, like, was to suggest that Reigns does have friends in, like, Shorty, Gable, and all that, but they didn't explain where they were right now.
No, later we were getting to the brawl, and the New Day had a legitimate out. Like, they were recovering from the ladder match, but I'm thinking Ali and Shorty G have been attached to the hip of Reigns, and where were those guys in all of this? At one point in this match, I think I'm noting to Mike just how, like, everyone seems to be like really snug here with the weapons, and we've seen a lot. And like mid-sentence, we have a close-up of Reigns' face and a chair that just smashes into his
Out of
face.
nowhere, yeah.
Like just right as I'm talking to Mike about this. And they replay it, and Mike just says, well, he kind of got his hand up. This thing blasted him in the face. It looked so unpleasant.
And his side of his face was already a mess too.
Yeah,
Like,
he was already like busted up from this, and this was just like a spot nobody remembered from this match, and it just looked like it.
I mean, we
sucked.
watched it a couple times, rewinding it, but
We did rewind and watched it because it looked brutal. So the Revival hit him with the Shatter Machine, and Corbin hits the End of Days onto a chair and pins Reigns at 22 minutes and 11 seconds. So the feud continues. There was teases of dog food in this match. We had several cans, but no actual dog food used, which I still believe is how this feud has to end.
They might drag it to WrestleMania.
I think we'll get the dog collar match, maybe.
I think Kennel from Hell is what I'm holding out for.
I want.
I don't think this
The
can
lo- I
stretch
want
to
the
the
loser
Rumble.
to
I think
do
this
the
has to
dog.
end on TV, and then both are in the Rumble. That's my thought on this, but we'll see how this goes. But
I'm still hoping that one of them becomes a dog for a show. They gotta like go for a walk and stuff like that. God, how bad could it be?
be like the turkey suit in TNA.
Yeah, like the dog suit.
Loser has to go to a furry convention.
I found myself like having a tough time getting to the first half of this match when it was Baron Corbin all in control. But I think once Roman really like started this comeback, I actually got into it. Crowd was really with him. I love the way that they're just forming, like, making him Superman. Literally by doing the punch and also by taking out like 20 guys at the same time. I think he looks like a real badass, and I feel like as a babyface, Roman is in probably the best, most effective spot he's been in, and it feels like in forever.
I think he's suffering right now from just not having enough heels to work with. I think Corbin he was a stopgap, and I think we're just at this point. I don't need to see this feud continue anymore. I was expecting this match to be really good. Just Roman Reigns in a match based around weapons. This guy shines in a lot of these situations, and it didn't quite reach that level for me. I think the first half really dragged this down, and it's another loss for Reigns. I don't think it like harms him, but it is a feud that I think everyone's ready to wrap up.
No,
So
it took a lot to get Reigns down at the end of this match, right? You had the
Yeah.
Revival, you had Ziggler.
Yeah.
Getting back to your Superman thing, I mean, the one thing that bothered me with this, and John and I were talking about this before, on SmackDown when he was getting fed the dog food and he was chained up, I mean, that's your Superman pose there, right? After he's left there, I mean, break out
Breaking
of that.
the chains?
Break out.
That
it's not
would have
even-
been too much.
No, it was
man.
like a long chain, some handcuffs. He
They've
was
done
furious.
that. They've done that in wrestling, and it always just looks really goofy.
I think
I
they're
mean, it was dumb
I
for
think
them,
they
right?
are overly cautious right now with Roman Reigns, that they are so afraid of doing anything that is too pro Roman now that invites those boos back. I think they're so worried about that, and they'd rather have this, not so much indifference, but it's certainly not the heated atmosphere that you used to get with Roman Reigns.
I thought tonight
prior.
the crowd was pretty into Roman Reigns.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, one of the more pro Roman.
They largely are. It's like you're not getting negative reactions. It's whether they're subdued for
Right.
Roman.
It's because he's outside of the title picture. He's not even
Yeah.
in the main event picture most weeks, and they are not having him win everything. They're having him getting beaten down by, I would say, you could say what you want about their matches, but I would say Corbin overall is an effective heel. He doesn't even have to do a whole lot in order to elicit the reactions that he gets, and
No.
Roman's kind of benefiting from that.
Yeah.
Would you venture to guess WrestleMania? Do you see it being The Fiend and Roman Reigns? Do you think that's the destination?
No.
Where do you see Roman Reigns ending up? Because it's going to be something big,
Yeah, it is gonna be something
and
big.
probably
Maybe-
the title picture on SmackDown.
I could see them maybe bringing somebody back. Either a legend from the past.
You're kinda
somebody
running out of
pops over.
legends.
I know you are, but
Cena's hanging out.
Cena's hanging out. Trips again, maybe. It's been a few years.
Goldberg?
Spear versus Spear.
I'm just looking at options for
Yeah.
Roman. Unless you flip the title to Bryan, you could do Bryan and Reigns, but then that's the same predicament where fans are going to boo Reigns in that scenario, I feel, at this point. So I'm really interested to see how they handle Roman, and I don't see them putting him over in the Rumble, because I think with all that history with the Rumble, again, it's like you're inviting those boos, and I think they're paranoid of generating that reaction again, where they're at a point now where Roman, the audience largely takes to him, and I think they enjoy this guy. He's not he doesn't come across like the overly produced Roman Reigns. He has a much higher likability factor, and I don't think they want to screw with that. And sometimes I think they're being too cautious at times by the amount of losses that they've been giving them now. So from there, we go to Bray Wyatt and The Miz. So The Miz comes out, first of all, after the tone they have set for all of this, and you just hear the quiet on the set. May we please have quiet on the set? I'm like, I'm already out of this. Whatever they did, that entrance alone, and then Mike is like, is he going to do the twist? And he walks out and he does the goddamn twist with his stupid fucking glasses on,
the scarf,
his goofy hair. I was like,
headband bullshit.
I'm not even going to try.
It's always been the problem with, I think, a character that kind of has its roots as a heel. Now, do you not feel the same way whenever Shawn Michaels had to do something serious? Coming at the sexy boy.
Sure, I totally agree with you, but this is something that has, allegedly crossed the line, right? This has been brought. We're bringing cameras into the Miz's house, and his children are going to be on TV, right?
Yes.
So if he came out just in his gear, ready to go, tape fists, maybe, something different to set him off and present him differently, totally different reaction to be like, holy shit, Miz is like pissed.
Sure.
No, we get the. I'm a little hesitant with the twist, and but he's still
threatening my family, but I still have to look.
Yeah, I gotta look cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the problem with the Miz character. That I think for one night they should have totally ditched that. In the end, this really didn't matter. So he's out, and then Bray comes out, and it's Funhouse Bray coming out holding the title.
No red light.
No red light.
Different entrance music.
Yeah. It felt really weird. Like, this is your champion. I understand what they're doing with this character, but nonetheless, he's out and the match begins. Miz hits a skull-crushing finale in the opening minutes, but doesn't go for the cover. And then he attacks Bray's arm. He's going for a Fujiwara armbar and tries to pretty much dislocate the shoulder.
It's the penta spot.
And Bray goes to the floor and drives himself into the barricade, trying to pop it back into place. And he's laughing. Bray then catches Miz, drapes him on the top of the barricade, and hits a Sister Abigail. And the audience is checked out of this. Miz beats the count into the ring, only to be hit with another Sister Abigail, and he loses and lets his entire family down in 6 minutes and 35 seconds. He couldn't even fight for 10 minutes for them.
Couldn't even fight like the depowered version of the Fiend.
So what did you think about this? Because I thought this was a very comic book storybook telling in this match.
I thought, I was really just looking at the match as a whole initially, and I thought it was a really flat finish. I was expecting more of the Fiend's gimmick to really come out, or at least something more interesting in the back and forth. Like, I wanted to see how the Fiend was going to appear outside within Bray Wyatt. Instead, it was just like a match where like Miz seemed to take like 99% of it, and then Sister Abigail, and that was it.
I thought it was pretty creative in some of the things that they did, and that it was telling the story about I'm going to change Wyatt's going to change the Miz. He's going to make him do things that he's never done before. He's going to push him to that spot, and he was like egging him on, right, to keep going for more, and like grinding, like pulling at his face, and the armbar. Like you don't see Miz doing stuff like to that extent. But also that different character and just the presentation of how Wyatt reacted to the crowd and the chants, it was like in character, like he was the kids' TV host. So although in the end, the match itself wasn't terribly exciting as a match, I thought a lot of things got covered in the character of Wyatt and this facet of the Fiend versus Bray Wyatt. But I think everything set up to what the second part of this story was, which really wasn't the match. It was what happens afterwards.
Yeah, and I think without that, this is that much more flat, because I think the Miz comes out of this, I don't think very good at all.
No.
Like he just and I would say to your point, like, hey, he ditched the entrance. This is a totally different Miz, and it's just he's so aggressive that he fucks up and he makes mistakes.
Yes.
He's all emotion. I don't think they really conveyed that well. To me, it was just this guy ultimately fell to Bray Wyatt and was an afterthought afterwards. And now we're moving on to the program people are really into.
What as a viewer am I supposed to comprehend about the power differential between the two? It was Bray Wyatt holding back the whole time.
I totally saw it that way. You've read The Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
Right? And Joker keeps pushing Batman to get him to snap. And he won't. Right. But he's doing that. Wyatt is the Joker. and trying to get the Miz to like kind of go over that line, right, as far as he can. But in the end, Wyatt just takes him out.
Okay.
Without even breaking a sweat, right?
Right.
This comparison in wrestling is a very poor man's Minoru Suzuki Jushin Thunder Liger, where he was trying to get Liger to be dishonorable.
You're right.
And wouldn't.
But there's a lot more different things with this character, which people are into this character, right?
The difference there, though, is Suzuki, I think, narrates that in his backstage interview, so the viewer knows exactly what to expect. Something like this, which I think you definitely can be right with your interpretation of it, requires, I think, a lot of specific interpretation from your previous history reading comic books.
So, yeah.
Something that certainly the announcers didn't hint on at all.
Nope.
Yeah, I think you have to give a lot of benefit of the doubt here. Like Miz, to me, just like what a failure he comes across as here, and then we're just
how do you go home to your wife and your family afterwards?
And like
right?
I don't even expect much follow up to this.
He shouldn't show up on TV for like a month, at least 2 months.
I thought that part was. I thought the match was weak, and I didn't really get into it. Afterwards, the Fiend appears on the screen. We just see his face, and Bray is in the ring saying, "I'll do it." And he grabs the giant mallet from under the ring, and I'm thinking, my God, we might be seeing the salvaging of Seth Rollins for all my worst of picks this year, because this segment is probably going to clinch it. But then the lights flicker. Bray yells, he's here, and we don't have Seth in a hoodie. It's Daniel Bryan in a hoodie. These hoodies are getting a lot of business from WWE this week. And Daniel Bryan takes out Bray with the running knee, and then he takes off the hoodie to reveal his haircut. He has gone 10 years into the past. He is now the virgin Daniel Bryan. And
the virgin Daniel
Bryan. Dude, he looks like Bryan off of NXT.
Oh, yeah.
And just looks so much younger.
He's like 10 years younger.
It's amazing. Just has not like a shaved head like the American Dragon days, but like a short haircut. Yes. And he lays out Wyatt with kicks, another running knee, stomps him down, and then he grabs this mallet, and he's about to use this mallet. Thankfully, the lights went out, and we didn't have to see him use this goofy. This weapon is just the silliest thing in the world.
It's goofy, but when he actually slammed it down, it made a huge
it's a
thud.
giant.
Like I have no doubt that it's actually a really heavy object.
I actually thought he was going to hit Miz with it, because you have to get this guy away now for a long time, and I thought they were going to kill him with the mallet for temporarily. So the lights go out, and then when they come back on, Bryan's holding the mallet, but Bray has disappeared. So I mean, the crowd got into this. Bryan saved this segment, because if you did not have this, I think this would have been one of the flattest segments of the year.
Yeah. I love the change of look in Daniel Bryan. I feel like it's the completion of his babyface turn, and even like at the end here, I would say it still ended a little bit flat. And I don't know how much of that has to do with the crowd versus maybe what they saw beforehand versus maybe how the segment was scripted. But overall, I thought this was a positive, the way they reintroduced him.
And I think they'll easily stretch this out to the Rumble. This would seem to be the Rumble match for these two.
You gonna go for the title at the Rumble?
I would think so. If Bray's gonna.
So what's your interpretation of like what the Fiend's motivation is here? Do you think that the Fiend has been successful? I guess
he's changed.
Aside of Bryan?
I guess if his idea is to either take people out, which is like the X's on the eyes of the photos that have been behind him, or enact changes in some of these characters. I mean, visually alone, Daniel Bryan is different, right?
So he has changed Daniel Bryan. Now, what does he have left to gain in the match? Like, what is sort of the
what does Bray have to win? It's like
he's gonna go after Birdie now.
You gonna change her?
Hopefully not, and hopefully we just get this.
I'm done with
the family
young children being used in wrestling angles. I think we can move on from some of these.
I think there's enough other stuff, and there's enough other talent on this roster that we don't need to get into people's like preschool children, like being used in this stuff.
Although I loved it though when they did it with them. I thought my nose guy was excellent on Friday.
There's a video for the tables match, which was their spoof on TMZ with TLC, as they recap this in tongue-in-cheek fashion to go over this. Mike, you thought it was a much better storyline in 2 minutes than it was in 3 months.
3 months, yeah, tighter.
Bobby Lashley, Rusev tables match, and I gotta say, for all that they put into this, when this match began, this crowd did not care all that much.
No.
Do you think it was just the overall feud? Was it a tired crowd, or was it just tables match, people really didn't care, or a bunch of reasons?
I feel like there's a certain excitement about like the talking segments because they get so ridiculous. When you're left with the match between these two, it's just a match that you've probably seen before. Hardly. I don't know if the heat really translates to in-match setting as much as these are just kind of entertaining, stupid soap opera storylines that you see on Raw or SmackDown.
Nothing says avenging, this humiliation, getting divorced, than I'm gonna put you through a table.
And Rusev's not even upset. He's happy as shit about this whole thing, right?
Yeah, he's doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's living his best life.
He's good. They set up various tables. They did some teases. They fought on the apron. Lashley leaped over a table that was set up on the floor, and then Rusev attacked him with the steps. Also brought in a guardrail, and Lashley ended up smashing him through the guardrail. And then we got the kendo sticks, which led to all these welts over Rusev's back. Rusev came back with his own kendo stick shots, and this is when Lana runs in, jumps onto Rusev's back, and sends her off as Lashley goes to spear him into the table in the corner. Table forgot his spot, blew it, and did not break. So Lashley, I thought, rather smart on his part.
Quick.
Because 9 times out of 10, the guy would just go for another spear and just call attention to it. Instead, just pulled Rusev, didn't even look that there was a table set up in the other corner, just knew there was, and suplexed him over. I thought as good a recovery as possible. Sometimes the table's not going to break, and he didn't, make it absolutely painfully obvious that that was the finish. So did something different here. 13:30, but I thought a pretty flat match.
I was surprised at the lack of energy, like you said, for how much they put into this feud. And I think how energetic the crowd gets during these talking segments, but the match, it just did not carry across. But I thought some pretty fun spots throughout. We'll see where the story goes from here.
Yeah, I guess it's going to continue. And they were pushing now that Lashley is going to propose to Lana, so that, you have to get a wedding segment out of this. I mean, that's just, you can't go too long without a wedding segment on TV.
When was the last wedding we had on WWE?
Oh boy, I can't remember off the top of my head when the last wedding was. Was it a while?
Must have been. Yeah, I can't really.
Like the Daniel Bryan AJ one, that was years and years
Chat
ago.
room, let us know.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody out there to let us know, please. Last WWE wedding.
The Street Profits were speaking backstage. Montez asked Dawkins, they said, they gave us these promos for months and months and months. Why do you think they beat us in 3 minutes on Monday? And Dawkins was like, dude, I don't know, but that SNL segment didn't do us any favors either. And Ford was like, no, man, it's been a bad week for us. So
it was a wildly self-referential, self-aware promo.
And then Roman Reigns and King Corbin brawled backstage, and now we've got the New Day, the Revival. Buddy Murphy was in there. Did you spot anyone else that was in this? It was just a bunch of guys, and they're just brawling all over the back, and we would revisit this later. So at least Roman has some friends, or he bought some guys off. Main event, the Kabuki Warriors against Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. Second straight pay-per-view that the women are going on last. Tables, ladders, and chairs match for the tag titles. So unlike in the Corbin Reigns match, it was pinfall or submission. This one, you have something tangible hung above the ring. Becky and Charlotte took turns tossing Kairi Sane back and forth onto the announcers' desks. They go back into the ring. Asuka and Sane, they double-teamed Flair with a chair, including a seated dropkick into the chair. Kairi gets dragged underneath the ring, or hides underneath the ring, and then gets dragged from underneath and comes out with a fire extinguisher, nailing both. And then Asuka brings out a bull rope and starts whipping the women with it, and then starts swinging the bull rope above her. This was a cowgirl shit.
Thank you.
Flat.
That chant did not come
John
out of the
tried it
Target
over,
Center.
yeah.
The Kabuki Warriors then tied Becky to the ladder with the rope, and she proceeded to be tied to this thing for like 5 minutes. It might have been the goofiest
Like she
thing.
was on a train track.
Yeah, exactly,
Dude,
right?
this
Like it was like a
right
silent
out
movie.
of a cartoon. It looked so ridiculous. And for the amount of time that she's stuck there, it's Becky Lynch here. Like
She's not even struggling, right? Like
It's
just
like,
chilling.
oh my god. They double teamed Charlotte during this period, including throwing her over the barricade, and they went at a snail's pace to climb the ladder so Flair could return with a kendo stick. On the floor, Becky is still tied to this ladder. It's like, you guys forget about me? And she got her foot up when Sane went for the insane elbow. Becky got free from the rope and fights back. Becky then put Asuka through a table on the floor with a guillotine leg drop. Sane then came off the turnbuckle. This was the scary spot. Flair and Becky are both on a table together. Sane comes off the turnbuckle. I don't know what was the desired outcome. Charlotte gets out of the way. Becky doesn't. Sane just lands terribly. And I don't know if Becky was supposed to move, obviously the table was supposed to break, and it didn't. And Kyrie was affected the rest of the match, it seemed, from this. And this is where the match totally fell apart. And if there was any doubt about that, Charlotte Flair did not exactly have the poker face on, because she was just swearing up a storm, clearly frustrated. And it just seemed like everyone was on different pages for what seemed like an eternity from here until the end of the match.
Now, like, if Kyrie was actually injured, the rest of everything she had to do was certainly made it more difficult to watch.
It's a viable scenario that could have occurred here, because Kyrie was, she ends up taking this spear from Charlotte that's just, you can see she is terrible. Not there. It looked awful. And then this, to me, like, granted, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. This spot should have been just cut out. She is struggling to get Kyrie up. Kyrie is out of it. And then she takes a snap powerbomb through a table that is...
Powerbomb.
Well, right. It's still like she gets driven down because Charlotte's overcompensating for the fact she can't get her up, and it just drives her through this. She's so close to a ladder as well upon landing here.
Yeah, just missing it. But...
So she's out of the match at this point. Thank God. Yeah. So people are concerned about Kyrie. The crowd is so quiet here. Becky and Flair then attack the Kabuki Warriors with chairs, and now the crowd's booing Becky and Charlotte. This is just becoming a disaster. Asuka powerbombs Flair off the turnbuckle through a table on the floor, which did not look like a fun landing either, as Charlotte just grabbed the back of her head. Becky climbs the ladder, but the bull rope is attached to it, and Asuka yanks the rope, tipping Becky over, and Asuka is able to climb up and grab the tag titles at 25 minutes and 51 seconds. And they don't even get like your shot of the Kabuki Warriors celebrating. Nothing. They cut away.
Oh, Kyrie was out of the ring.
Kyrie was out of the ring, and they just got away from the ring entirely.
There was a moment where you can clearly see, like, as Becky was attacking Kyrie with the chair, like, just pulling her close to just talk to her, like, hey, duck under this, and we'll just kind of, and then sit down for the rest of it. It was really concerning. Like, I thought it was really pretty obvious the moment, like, she couldn't take that spear, like, that she was really fucked up, very likely, I would say maybe concussed or something like that. So just to see her go through the powerbomb and go through all these other spots was just really painful.
You know, we had this discussion a while back about, like, the Lesnar Undertaker match, and if that happened now, what are they going to do? Like, this is your answer. It's it's still the mentality, we've got to finish the match, and you've got to go through these spots.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous, because there's 3 other people in this match. Like, if one person's hurt,
there were a lot of, like, elaborate things that they were designing, but you're right, it's no excuse. You know, you sort of have to have, like, you know, safety precautions. No,
like, imagine if she had got a concussion and then she took that powerbomb through a table afterwards. She's in no position to be protecting herself, to land, and it's just, then you're compounding problems. And it's like, okay, the match has fallen apart. It's not ideal. She's out of this. And I just think...
And they ended up doing that, I think, because I'm sure Kyrie must have had something to do at the end, and instead you had Asuka have to pull the rope, drag the thing back in, and grab the ladder. So at the end, I feel like they had to do it all. They had to basically improvise that way. But I don't know.
I understand this is live. I know it's chaotic, but I feel that, like, there needs to be, I think, like, a better understanding of, if these situations occur, having a more stringent policy that, okay, no more bumps. And, you know, sometimes it's
just go to the finish.
You can just go right to the finish. It's like, it's not always about, we've got to finish the match. I think that mentality just has to be thrown out at this point. So it just ends with the men's brawl. They spill into the arena, and Reigns dove off this elevated area, spearing Corbin onto all of the guys. And that's how the show went off. Strange ending with the brawl that they immediately cut to.
I think that's the add-on to try and salvage the rest of it.
You think the brawl was like a something like an audible? Because, like, they did tease it at the beginning.
They did tease it at the beginning, but I think that spot where you get the big spear off of it afterwards, right?
I mean, I could see it being planned just because you had the heels going over here, that maybe they wanted to end it on more of a high note than the heels winning the match.
Sure.
that would be my own, my thought there. But anyway, that was the show. Just a really rough main event.
Yeah, and I can totally understand, like, and that, to me, what part of the problem of the entire show was, and the problem with, like, doing a TLC pay-per-view is the fact that everybody feels like they need to go all out for these stipulation matches, and unfortunately, it comes with a great deal of risk that I just don't think it was worth taking, because you saw a number of people get legitimately injured on this show, and the worst to come, I think, probably in the main event here, and really for what? You know, none of these matches have really any meaning as far as storyline goes. I think these TLC matches should just be the TLC match in the main event, and that's it. Injuries are going to occur no matter what, but at the very least, hopefully, they're occurring for something that is a storyline that is reaching its peak, and that is worthwhile.
I think you're right. I mean, through the WWE calendar year, you've got the Rumble. That makes sense. We know what that match is about, right? The Elimination Chamber is now at a spot where it means something, and it's usually the second contendership for the WWE titles, or whatever one it might be for Mania. But with Hell in a Cell and with TLC, these things are just like, this is in this month. Oh, we need to have a match, and they get like 2 weeks. We get 3 Raws, I guess, between Survivor Series and a gimmick-filled pay-per-view. Your storylines are set up 2 days before the pay-per-view. This is ridiculous. You're not selling tickets on the merits of these matches. You're not getting more buys on the merits of these matches, because,
and you're putting your roster at risk.
Yeah, it's a subscription, right? No one is paying an extra $10 or whatever it is to see a match that's booked on Friday.
I wonder if there's, like, you know, a desire to, like, kind of overcompensate for the weak card by taking more risk in these matches.
Sure, but it's also, when you see what the person does in the first match, well, I got to do better than that, right? If I'm in the main event, I got to make it better than the first match.
Yeah, so, you know, hopefully there was nothing. Hopefully, especially, I guess Kairi Sane would be the biggest one, that there aren't any serious injuries. But man, there were a lot of like bumps and bruises on this show.
Charlotte took a
up
bad
and down
one
the
too.
show. Like everyone, there was just a lot of that on the show, and by its nature, it's going to lend itself to that. Where are you guys going? Thumbs up, down, in the middle? Where did you see this show?
I would say thumbs. Somewhere between thumbs slightly down, like I would say about 40%.
I thought it was a thumbs down show, like for this, first 2 matches aside, I mean, that to me can't carry an entire show, and we're at a time when, I have a pretty high bar when it comes to sitting down for a 4-hour wrestling pay-per-view, and I did not think this was a great show.
I'm with you guys. It was disappointing, but no fault of the performers. Everybody busted their butts in this show.
There was a lot of people that worked super hard on this show. It was just a factor of different things, and some programs that were not very heated and had a lot of interest. And one positive I'll say about this, we were at a hit there by 10:30, so that was a positive. I have no problems with shorter shows, that they don't feel the need to have to go super long on these, and I'm glad that they did a pay-per-view where it's like we don't have to have every star on every show. I'm fine with that, to try and let some of these programs breathe and not just get multiple matches per program.
No, and you get a chance to get some different people on the cards too, for sure.
Was that, seeing how this card played out though, and I would say an overall negative reaction to it from us, do you think they see this and say, we can't do another show without a Seth Rollins match, or without a Daniel Bryan match?
No, I don't think that's not the reason why. I think just the wheels fell off in a few spots, and
I feel like they were confident that the matches and the spectacle of these TLC matches would have overcompensated for the lack of star power.
On paper, this show going in, I thought like this will probably be a pretty good show, and I think this was enhanced by the fact, like if there were 11 matches on this show, I think that drags it down, because you're not going to have the time for everybody. But the women's main event on paper, that looks like you're going to get 25 minutes from the women with Charlotte involved. I'm pretty high on that. I thought Reigns and Corbin would be fine. It didn't meet my expectations. The ladder match was very good.
So what went wrong?
I think you had number one. I think like the crowd did hurt a lot of these matches, and some of the programs people were not all that invested in. I think Rusev and Lashley, I think they've grossly overestimated just how over this is to most people. I don't think people were dying to see. You had a lot of like car crash television, but I don't think any desire to see this match, which feud should build towards and you want to get to the match.
A table match is an easy way out too, as well, right? There's always that fluke. Oh, somebody falls off the ring. Oops, somebody like makes a mistake and falls off the rope and falls through the table. It's not that solid payoff that someone, if you're invested in the story and you want to see Bobby Lashley get his, right?
I don't know if a pinfall, like a standard match, would have really been all that better.
Better,
to be honest. Like it has to be something involving Lana directly.
What do you propose?
Well, no, I'm saying like something where she's a bit more involved than just somebody sitting on the sidelines.
Tables, Lana's, and chairs match.
Like, do you put Lana through a table?
Like she
in another era, that would be how
sure,
this feud ends,
right?
with Rusev putting Lana through a table, but they're not going to be doing that.
The feud
today.
is Rusev Lana.
Yeah,
So we'll go to NWA Into the Fire very shortly, but I just want to get to the rating from the forum.
Okay.
The forum gives this show a 4.95 out of 10.
Ouch.
All right. You want to
Let's go to NWA.
Tell us a bit about the show, Mike. What were the standout matches, and what did you think overall of the show in comparison to NWA Power? How they did taking that and applying it to pay-per-view.
I really enjoyed the format of NWA Power as a season, which I think is something they started promoting later on, that this was going to be the season finale, the pay-per-view. And I think they've done a great job introducing people, their motivations, alliances, what people want, who wants the belt, where people are on the card, who do they like, who do they not like.
I agree. On this card, I was amazed at how much I knew about every single character.
Yeah, right? Like, and everybody got a chance to breathe, and you didn't get inundated. Like, there wasn't like 15 characters on the first episode. It took like 6 episodes to get the 15 characters, right?
It's a lot more than I could say about AEW, honestly.
I agree.
I think there's so many people that appear in their matches that I really don't know any motivation about. And I think the difference is the fact that NWA lets their characters talk, maybe often talk more than actually wrestle.
And I think you're right. And getting back to the pay-per-view, when that happened almost before or after every match, there was a segues at the desk. I kind of felt like I was just watching an extended version of Power, right? And that isn't a bad thing, but I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting a slightly different presentation. And yes, we got some ring entrance music. Does that matter?
Walking through the stairs.
Walking down from the stairs instead of kind of popping through the back.
Thing is, do you take it out of the arena and kind of take the appeal of kind of what makes it attractive?
I would like to see them try and see if they can transfer that energy and that nostalgic feeling that people have, and put it in a different place. Put it in
we've seen
someplace like Ted
when
Reeves, right? Where it's a different looking place,
like the Crockett Cup pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a great job of and that was like a bigger venue. But it's interesting because now the set, like GPB Studios, is almost like a character within the show itself. That's a big appeal to people. And that's, the first time you saw the photo of that, I think that grabbed people. And that was a big reason for the hook of episode 1 was, wow, I really want to see what this product's like.
Yeah, and it definitely, for older fans, or people who've been watching stuff on the network from 30 years ago, from 40 years ago, right? It definitely has that feel. And that sort of like low-key, not just in the presentation, but also actually the mat style itself. I was telling John, there was one dive on the whole pay-per-view.
And he was 63.
And, right? And that's crazy, right? In this day and age. And that I was explaining to Vivian, my oldest daughter, known as Queen of the C Block out there.
Did she watch it?
She watched a little bit of it, but it's been a pretty busy weekend with her hockey. There isn't like a finishing move for guys. It kind of harkens back to the 70s and 80s where a match really can end out of anywhere. And it's not like you've incapacitated the person or hurt them. It's you just kind of got the better of them. And it kind of leaves it open that'll let the storytelling of they got beat this time, but it's not going to happen again. And it kind of keeps the competition, I think, going.
How did you find Stu Bennett did on commentary?
I thought he was really good. I thought he was really good. He had a weight of the history of the company. He knew the characters. He knew who everybody was. He knew what they were doing there. There was no mistakes on anything. And much like Joe Gallus, I mean, he knows the holes. He knows what the proper names for. That's a hangman's neck breaker. It's not just a neck breaker. There's like specific variations of things that, when we were growing up, you kind of got that stuff instead of, oh, what a maneuver, or vintage reigns. That's a knuckle lock. That's a hammer lock. and things like when's the last time you saw a hammerlock in a match?
I think I like Bennett a lot. It's so weird calling him that, Stu Bennett. I don't think anybody's going to be as perfect of a fit for this product as Jim Cornette.
Nope.
Like, he was really just the perfect voice for it. It's too bad he is
The only
he
person
is
I
the
would
person
say,
that he is, right?
The only other person I would say is maybe Jim Ross.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Great. Yeah. But I think they found a wonderful replacement in Stu Bennett, who really like fits the tone of the product, and especially now up top with like so many people coming out of the British scene that are find themselves in NWA. He has a lot of personal stories attached to all those guys.
So in the main event, it was Nick Aldis and James Storm. Aldis retaining the title, and I guess the big news coming out is Marty Scurll appearing and I guess teasing a match with Nick Aldis and
Rematch.
And the rematch, right, from the last pay-per-view. But they also announced pay-per-view for Friday, January 24th, which is Royal Rumble weekend. They're going to run a Friday night at 7 p.m. show. So they will go against SmackDown that night and coming back very quick to pay-per-view. Do you think it's too quick?
It would be interesting to see how they lay this out, right? Because everything else was in the can. I got to think that I've got faith in them to kind of tell the story that they want to get to with this pay-per-view.
I have to imagine part of the thinking is that they just, number one, it's $20, so it's not that big of a commitment. And also, I have a feeling they just want to start making money because they're putting the show up on YouTube for nothing.
Free. Yeah, right.
So, to ask somebody every single month to pay $20 for essentially what you're getting on YouTube as well as this pay-per-view, that could perhaps be some of the thinking that they're thinking.
And there was definitely an interest in this pay-per-view. I think they had put out the note that the pre-sale orders for this pay-per-view already beat out their NWA 70th anniversary show. The total buys for that.
So I don't know if you guys caught it, but the pre-sale was $5 less than.
I thought a very smart
that's
promotion
that's a
on
smart
their part.
move, right? Yeah. And you can start to drum up interest, and you can see, okay, this works. We know where we're at. We'll probably get X amount more, right? But
it's smart because it's almost like a 1-2 punch that you're going to, what your pre-sale is going to be. It's going to incentivize people to buy early. So it gives you a gauge of where we're at. Yep. And then you're still going to get people at the last minute who are going to that are deciding to buy a pay-per-view the day of, and they'll end up spending the extra $5. But it's almost like two big opportunities to hit people with, as opposed to just traditional pay-per-view where you're going to wait till the day of anyway, and maybe you don't order. If you pre-order it, then you're going to make your plans ahead of time.
So the two biggest disappointments I had was, one, we didn't find out what Camille said to James Storm, right? And I think that was a really big, that should have been a big payoff on this pay-per-view of what was said. And
we should talk about the finish of the match.
What do you want to say?
Well, okay, so 2 out of 3 falls.
2 out of 3 falls.
So it's Tim Storm was one of the referees, and Brian Hebner was one of the referees. So in the third fall, obviously it's 1-1, and then in the third fall, Brian Hebner gets knocked out from a ref bump, and so Tim Storm has to come in. And I don't know if the intent was to let people believe that Tim Storm was going to screw like Nick Aldis over or anything.
I mean, I think it's there, right?
Right. But that didn't happen. Instead, It was just Camille coming out, distracting. Wait, that was the first fall.
That was the first fall.
What was the third fall? Remind.
The third fall, we had
everybody come out to. Wait.
We're gonna go back over. We've watched a lot of wrestling this weekend, man.
I was watching this during the kickoff. It was like a whole lot of.
John's gonna pull up my report because that's what I'm trying to do.
I am gonna pull up your report. So okay, so
he's gonna feed me through this. We're the worst. I'm never coming back for live one, I can tell.
Tim Storm comes to referee the match. Storm then hits the last call. Aldis then takes the top turnbuckle pad off the corner, and Storm tries to go for the pin. Aldis kicks out, and Storm's face goes into the exposed buckle. Tim Storm gives both men a standing 10 count. Aldis gets up, locks in the Texas Cloverleaf, and James Storm is out. So Tim Storm calls for the bell.
So the idea is that Nick Aldis cheated by exposing the turnbuckle to knock.
Except James that he was also in a state of disarray where he kind of holds onto the turnbuckle and pulls back, and it comes off.
So did he cheat or did he not cheat
intentionally? I mean, it is you can really it's left open. Yeah. That's the tease, right? And I think that there's
I like that. That's
there was a lot of controversy with Tim Storm, unless you want to say that he was in on it.
He shouldn't have been the ref, because at this point it should have been Brian Hebner who was the ref after the coin toss, but he gets injured and he's out. So then you have, if you're James Storm, this is your conspiracy, right? Right. He got screwed out of it by the guy who shouldn't have been calling it, who was Nick Aldis' guy. So I think that, whatever they're going to Tuesday's episode is going to be, there should be, if you watch the pay-per-view, there's hooks there.
So what was your disappointment?
Besides that one,
That Tim Storm wasn't revealed as James's
You
father.
didn't like the match.
I did. I liked a lot of the matches, but like I said, you are kind of paying $20 to watch an extended version of what you've been watching this whole time. And even though the pay-per-view was only 2.5 hours long, my second one is there was so much video replay of what we've seen through this only 9 episode storyline, right? And if you're watching the pay-per-view of this product, you have probably watched every episode.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know about that. Some
You
people
don't think so?
Well, I definitely think that I don't doubt that there are people giving this one a chance, or perhaps that need a refresher or a crash course about exactly what's going on, because they might not have seen all 9 episodes. Like I personally didn't feel it was a negative that they reminded you of what the storylines are before the match.
Often throughout like the period. I would say like if you take
Too
that
much?
2.5 hours, it's got to be at least 40 minutes maybe of like video recap.
Maybe
Half an hour, right?
Was it that much, really? Wow. Okay.
I thought it was a little much.
Yeah. Like watching, the only match I did not see was a 3-way, unfortunately, because I ran out of time. But I felt like this was a show where the wrestling, certainly, much like the TV show, the wrestling is not going to be something that you would go out of your way to be like, wow, holy shit, this match.
You're right.
For me, it's more so the characters and how invested you are in the characters. They could, I think they continue to do a really good job of like building up storylines and building up, individual rivalries. I would say all the matches for the most part are really passable. They come with great crowd, audience.
The crowd's really into them, yeah.
Excellent crowds that just sound really good despite them being so small. I was disappointed by the women's, the women's tag match,
yeah.
which I didn't think was that good.
Yeah.
But everything else I thought was very passable. Again, no blowaway matches at all. But like, I love seeing the Rock and Roll Express, who retain the belts. I love seeing them in that environment. I'm glad they're keeping them. I don't care about the complaints of them being too old. Like they're just special. They're over. Like, let's
like
run with
they're
it
going to specialize in storytelling matches, and I think that like
great promos.
And great promos. That's what's going to build them. And
yeah.
Nick Aldis, like he can go out and have like your classic championship style match that I think most people will like. The matches with Cody, and like he's been able to show like he can do a perfectly great championship style match that if the NWA were to load a pay-per-view up with like all these like hot flyers and stuff like that, I don't know how much that would translate, and the NWA trying to be something different, but it's tough because now a lot of your audience, like that's what they're conditioned to want to see. And are they going to accept story over, great in ring, that the bar is so high. I don't think the NWA can compete in that. So they're going something totally different and at least trying a different alternative path.
So we talked about TLC tonight and how dangerous some of these matches were and what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
All these matches came out of something that somebody wanted a payoff to that has been leading towards this for free on YouTube, right? You can watch it whenever you want. It is a totally different feel. It's an alternative and
a very safe style.
A very safe style, right? And for guys that, maybe they're not making a big buck off of Billy Corgan on these shows, it's okay because it's something different, right? And you can have guys like Colt Cabana, with his style, he's not going to make it in WWE. That's not their
wrestling like that.
No, exactly.
Not wrestling like that.
But that's him, right?
Yeah. I will also say I feel like there's right now a bit of a disconnect about who the audience wants to cheer versus who they're trying to promote as a babyface versus a heel, and that goes for somebody like the Question Mark, who is like one of the most over guys in that entire thing. I
don't get it at this point.
Did you watch it? The match with the Mongrovian flag and everything.
Oh, that was
ridiculous,
amazing.
right?
I love it. John, you gotta see the
I have not seen the pay-per-view yet, but I'm gonna try and watch it.
You gotta see the Mongrovian flag ceremony at the very least.
Aaron Stevens in the 3-way for the national title had some great spots with hiding behind a Christmas tree and like.
I know what you mean though. It felt very much like a TV show, and what's gonna entice somebody to pay $20
when you've been watching for free?
So we kind of disagreed about this week, but they're coming back this Tuesday with a new episode.
Yeah.
And I would assume they only have 5 weeks until the next pay-per-view. Right. Would you have preferred if this pay-per-view wrapped up this season and then they go away for a month or two and you can come back with allow you to miss it, or do you think you're going to cut off your momentum if you stop?
You're going into the holiday season, so there's the chance that people are going to forget about it. But on YouTube, you can put the channel on and watch it whenever you want, right? And everything's lined up. So you're not worried about missing it or missing your PVR. It's there. It's a different way of watching it. It's totally not what the NWA was about in the 70s or 80s, let's say, right? But I think you got to kind of strike while the iron's hot too, right? And if they've got this momentum coming out of the pay-per-view, if they felt good about, I mean, they already had the TV tapings booked ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They were taping tonight and they'll do another one Monday.
Right. Even before they got the pre-sale buys, right? They must have felt some strong movements going, right? I mean, it's had a lot of views on YouTube.
I feel like wrestling viewership is at like a critical, like, people, like I've said before, I think everybody's looking for things to cut and looking for excuses for things to cut. And so I don't know if taking a week off for any reason right now is really, good.
Well, and granted, I said that before I realized they'd be having a pay-per-view so quick. So that kind of throws things out. But I will say this too, like you can talk about, they've got their niche that are going to buy their shows. I think it'd be a big mistake to go monthly. Because I don't think by month 3 or 4 people are going to be buying these shows in great numbers because you're gonna lose that specialness if you're coming back every 5 weeks.
I think you're right. If they packaged it as a season and had a schedule of like on for 10 weeks and then off for a month and then come back on for 2 months kind of thing, and give everybody a break, then go do something else, yada yada yada.
Very quickly, let me run through the results. So from the top, Nick Aldis defeated James Storm in a 2 falls to 1 match for the NWA Championship. We had Aaron Stevens winning the NWA National Championship in a triple threat match, defeating Colt Cabana and Ricky Starks. Allison Kay welcome. So they did the thing where Ashley Box was injured earlier in the show, so she had Allison Kay had a surprise partner, which was ODB, making her return, taking on Belina and Marty Bell, and the baby faces won there. Allison Kay and ODB. The Rock and Roll Express retained against the Wild Cards. The Question Mark defeated Trevor Murdoch. Thunder Rosa defeated Tasha Steeles, who I thought looked really good. Yeah. And Eli Drake defeated Ken Anderson.
All right. So they'll have a new episode on Tuesday with like the fallout from the show and whatever else is made up of that. Do we want to go to calls?
We are opening up the phone lines, everybody, to get your thoughts on any of the things that you might have watched, TLC or NWA or anything else, UFC even. So let's go to the phone calls right now. Caller, you're on the line. Jared, what's going on?
Guys, if I thought with a TLC pay-per-view about tables, ladders, and chairs, stuff to do with divorce, never would I hear "fuck salad" come out of your guys' mouths at some point, even if it involved KFC. But my favorite match of the night was Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy. Do you guys see a potential program at WrestleMania for Aleister Black and The Undertaker?
I don't. That would not be the name I would look at, but I mean, I do see them like seeing Aleister Black as like a major priority that they're going to be heating up. The Undertaker, I don't know. I don't know what to expect for him at WrestleMania. I don't sense really the specialness to do it, but would not surprise me either if he gets a program.
So what would the situation be there? Because I think like if you're gonna pass the torch from the Undertaker, as I think they've been trying to have him do for years now. I mean, there's no better person to give it to than Aleister Black. But do you risk the audience booing Aleister Black by putting him in there with The Undertaker? And what sort of match?
I think you risk having a really bad match.
Well, that's the main thing. Well, how big of a match can you get from Aleister Black versus The Undertaker?
I can't picture The Undertaker taking that black mass.
Black mass is relatively easy, though. It's like he doesn't have to get lifted. He just has to collapse.
I just don't think. I don't think that's a finish people want to see The Undertaker take at this point. Sure. I just see that one being a tough fit at this point. And to be honest, like I don't know how much a win over The Undertaker really does for the guy winning it versus it's more so the headline is The Undertaker losing. And we've seen it now twice since the Lesnar match. So I think like the importance is kind of gone. Was Roman Reigns any more popular after The Undertaker lost? Like, yes, you got that cool segment the next night on Raw, but that's about the value of it. Lesnar, I think it did help him because he was getting a little stagnant at that point, and I think that really did rejuvenate him at a time when kind of the Lesnar experiment was sort of kind of running out of fumes at that point that he really needed it. But the Reigns thing, I don't think that did anything for Reigns. I think he would have been in the exact same place without it.
I think the problem with Lesnar matches in the last few years is he's had these really big, bulky guys that he's had to face, and the matches have kind of gone down downhill because of that. But with Aleister Black, he's a big guy, but he's athletic. He can move really fast. Undertaker's moved into a bit more of a striking guy ever since he's gotten a little bit older. Aleister's that striking guy. They're both that demonic thing. Even if Aleister Black loses to Undertaker in the end, he still gets that main event rub that I think he might need to keep going forward.
Yeah, I think obviously like the promos and stuff, you could craft a really cool lead up to that match because of the characters and like their natural fit. I just look at the Undertaker now that, you know, to go out and people will have the expectation of a big Undertaker match that I think, you know, the Undertaker, if he's doing a match at WrestleMania, it should be 6 minutes.
Or it should be a spot.
Yeah, or a spot. Yeah, and I think that's the best utilization of the Undertaker now.
Back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on. What's going on?
Good evening, guys. MJ in New York.
Hey, MJ, what's up?
Going back real quick to the TLC pay-per-view, which you guys reviewed earlier, it felt like, and I mean this in a complimentary way, felt like a good episode, or what I would want a good episode of Monday Night Raw to be. It was like 3.5 hours, so I guess you could trim it down to like 3 hours. Maybe scrap a match or two with the gimmicks. But ultimately, it's just wrestling matches that don't feel kind of thrown on TV for the sake of it. These all had some kind of storyline to it. And there wasn't any title matches. Like, this wasn't NXT and AEW on Wednesday feel like bigger shows than TLC felt like tonight. And I don't know why Raw can't just be that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we look at like Raw that I think one of the major things is that it's very difficult to present like these high-end matches because, you know, you're handicapped by the fact that you've got to work in all those commercial breaks, which I think would affect the flow of all of the matches that we talked about tonight. But yeah, in terms of importance, yeah, I think AEW and NXT have done a much better job of Wednesday comes around and you know what the key matches are or the key segments are, and you've been at least aware of them for a week to be able to anticipate and look forward to it, where WWE, it's usually a day's notice or so that you don't really get that anticipation. It's just you're a creature of habit and you're tuning into these shows.
Yeah, I felt like there was maybe the lack of promotion made these matches, to me at least, feel not major, not pay-per-view worthy. I know they spent a lot of time with Rusev and Lashley. They spent a lot of time with Corbin and Reigns. But if you gave me those on Monday and Friday as like main event type matches, that's all I need. I mean, the pay-per-view was good just because it was, I don't know, moved by. Good is a strong word, but considering it moved by, I give it a thumbs up.
It moved by.
That's where we're at.
That'll be the T-shirt. WWE TLC.
Real quick on NWA, and I wanted to just touch on something Wai said, which I think is I agree with the statement that people are probably looking to trim some of their week-to-week viewing, but from a big, a well-promoted card, I think we do see with the example of New Japan that when they do have good cards, people will come back to the product. So the idea that, week to week, I'm not watching Power because it's just, there's only so much time. But I would be interested in watching the next pay-per-view, knowing that this one went well. If they promoted something with Marty and Aldis, like that would be a good hook for me. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to be watching it week to week. And I think there's some recipe for success there where we can get to watch shows just kind of tuning in to see well-promoted cards.
I think New Japan, though, is so firmly established, and to establish themselves at that level, they've had to deliver like consistent quality for years now at the highest levels that we've seen anywhere in wrestling. Is NWA capable of delivering something as entertaining as Wrestle Kingdom year over year, or something as the quality of a G1 for whatever kind of qualifications it has for its own fan base? I'm not sure. Like, if it could do that, then yes. But even New Japan struggles. Like, look how good they are, and they struggle to get people to stick around.
The tag league, no one was watching, right?
Yeah.
So MJ, what can you not live without every week?
Where do I not live?
I
grew up in.
No.
What can you not live without?
What do you have to watch every week?
Oh, what can I not live without?
Yeah.
At this point, my go-to wrestling when I want to watch something to enjoy and week to week, I'm not going to miss it. AEW, NXT, and then with the exception of Tag League, like pretty much most of the other big tours that New Japan does.
Right.
You guys supplement week to week kind of WWE.
Good answer.
Thank you, MJ, for the call.
All good. Take care, guys.
Yeah, but that's I mean that's to me it's a big priority for fans is still like my time, my free time, and what am I going to? There's no way you're consuming everything. And there was a time when you could, if it was on TV, you could probably go out of your way to catch all the promotions that have TV. And between everything that's available now, you've got to pick and choose. And I think that if you're not watching something weekly, it becomes very easy to just skip it and throw it out. It becomes very, very easy. So that's, to your point about the momentum factor with NWA, something maybe they don't want to risk is the idea of you go away and then you're out of sight, out of mind.
Back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air. What's up?
Good evening. Good evening, guys. How are you?
My goodness. How do you make it through all the time? Like, we're like, we got so many people trying to. Okay, what's up, Brandon?
Oh man. Good evening, guys. What's good, man? Man.
Mike might hang up on you, so we're just watching you.
Nice hat, Mike. That team's real struggling this year, huh?
Are you driving a truck as we speak, Brandon? Are you
wearing brown?
Are your hands free?
I'm suiting up in about 15 minutes
to
make the trek. So yeah, it's been a busy month, but we get through it. Man, it's a grind.
Please be safe.
What's that?
Please be safe. Is all I ask.
Oh, no doubt.
Did you make it through TLC?
I caught a couple matches and I took a little nap, but yeah, it was a cool show. I mean that women's TLC match was utter chaos, but and Lashley was the Lashley match was there. I mean it was pretty interesting. It was Rusev's over. I mean clearly, right?
He's got something behind him at the moment, and I think they've got to wrap up this program, and then it's where do they pivot Rusev from here after this program? Because I'll be honest, I think Lashley. I don't know where you go with Lashley after this. I don't think Lashley has really been much more than just an add-on to this program.
Yeah.
I don't see him. I don't see him any more over from this program and this association than he was prior.
And then King Corbin's court keeps expanding with the revival. That was interesting, right?
It was very interesting.
That's it. Yeah.
But the real story is the new Los Ingobernables in ROH.
Yeah, that's right. So tonight was the ROH tapings. I was just kind of skimming through this. So is this right that Kenny King joined LIJ?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Can he understand what Rush is saying? I hope he's bilingual. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, right?
I think they hinted that he was because his is it Amanda Rose that comes out with him, speaks to him in Spanish? They talked about it on the pay-per-view on Friday night.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
He was on the pre-show part.
Yeah,
which I missed because I have Rogers.
Oh, you missed the pre-show? Well, there was a hot All Night Express grudge match that they put on the pre-show.
I know. Yes.
Woo!
All right, Brandon. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. I'm just curious. Is LIJ have more cliques in different organizations than any members of the NWO? It's like the fifth organization that there's an LIJ. Is it too much, or what do you think about that? I'm out of here.
All right, thank you, Brandon.
Too many. I mean, well, they're not exactly LIJ. They'd just be LI if they're outside of Japan.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So
LIA, America.
No, I don't know. How many factions are there outside of And is Rush still? Do they say Los Ingobernables anymore?
Yeah, they do. They bring up that he's a founding member.
It does not does the CMLL not own it? And
that's a good point.
How can Rush still isn't he on the outs with them?
No, I mean he doesn't use he still does the same mannerisms that he used to, right? A lot of the stuff that Naito is kind of mirrored.
Okay.
And you can't ignore what ROH never ignores what else another company is doing, right? Yeah. So
back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on. What's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Hansi. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? Yo, before I get to my question, I thought that the email link would come into the Patreon. So I was sitting there for like an hour, for like 45 minutes. I didn't know you guys had a show on, so I caught up like pretty easily. Like, you know, I had to speed it up a bit, but I finally caught up. You know what I mean? But
I saw that you didn't get it. I don't know why. Like, it's supposed to have
It's
gone
all
out
good,
to everybody or everybody who's subscribed. So, maybe send me a message after we can look into it. But what'd you think of TLC?
Oh, no, for sure. No, I just thought I was just wondering where the show was, right? I was like waiting, but then I finally just logged onto my Patreon and I saw the show. But I thought the show. Listen, I know everyone else was down on it, but maybe because I live tweet during it and I'm like looking at everyone else's jokes and opinions, that these shows don't really come off as badly to me, because I kind of enjoy like at least the first hour. And I actually, like, even though the Miz and Wyatt match wasn't really anything, I kind of enjoyed the aesthetic of him coming out to like the family friendly music and all that. And like I see people like, you know, already complaining about like oh, this guy doesn't sell anything. But then like and I know the ring work is like, it depends on who, if you like the ring work or not. But I always find it odd that like all these guys in NXT, they do all these finishers, like 30 finishers, and these guys don't sell it. But people are mad that Bray Wyatt, who's built as a monster, is not selling anything. I think it's kind of refreshing that a current guy, other than a part-timer, is actually being built as like a monster, in my personal opinion. But I just thought the pay-per-view was dope. And I think I'll leave you guys with, I just want to know, like, do you guys think that do you guys think that ROH, like, I don't know, it just feels like they're at its wit's end. Do you guys think that they're staying in business, or do you guys follow some of these rumors that like it could be going out of business soon?
All right, thanks a lot for the call, Hansi, and that can take us into just some thoughts on Final Battle from Friday night. They did follow up with their television tapings tonight, but yeah, this has been a really tumultuous year for Ring of Honor this year. I would say in terms of the future of the company, their future of the company is completely down to Sinclair. And that's, if like it's programming for Sinclair, they'll either want to continue with it or not continue with it. It's not going to be something where like that's ultimately what it comes down to. But in terms of Ring of Honor itself, where do you kind of assess where the company is now at the end of 2019, Mike?
I mean, what we expect Ring of Honor to be as a wrestling company is the kind of classic, you have your TV show, it makes you want to go to the live events, and in the end you want to pay for the pay-per-view and you get your payoff. But that's not how Sinclair has it. Sinclair has it as an hour of television every week, and the TV does not necessarily lead you to buy the pay-per-view, inform you of the pay-per-view, I think, as strongly as it could. Keep you up to date exactly of where they are in their storylines. I mean, the live events are not lined up where the TV episodes are of what's been going on or who's turned on who and da-da-da-da-da-da. To really follow the product, you have to, I think, get into the Honor Club, right? To watch all the live events that they're doing, that it almost seems like the TV episodes are kind of cherry picking aspects of to show.
It seems like this has been a year where everyone has to adjust. It's like the whole industry has changed, and Ring of Honor has changed, I don't think for the better. And it's almost like they're still of the belief that it's still of 2 years ago in terms of their place in the market. And it's like, there's so many other players now, and you are playing catch up to a lot of other companies that where people may have been sampling your product at this level 2 years ago. Now there are X, Y, and Z other companies that are out there that you are competing with, and it's that much tougher to be able to maintain those fans. And I think that this has been a really sobering year for them in that sense since April.
I think we sat here last year at the end of Final Battle, and we were like, okay, so what's next with Ring of Honor? And they had brought in PCO, they'd brought in Brody King,
and Bandito,
and you know, Mark Haskins. And Juice,
Right.
Juice was going to be Juice Robinson was going to be a player, supposedly, with Lifeblood at the first.
the Lifeblood guys, and it was at least like, okay, this was the first step, and that's something here.
Jeff Cobb was early on, early days there, and at the end of this year, they were in worse shape than they were at the end of last year, right? Knowing that they were already going to lose the Elite, they did nothing with Marty Scurll. They put the belt on Taven and kept it on Taven for, I think, the detriment of their fan base. They weren't happy with it. and they didn't pull the trigger, like I said, on Skrull, or they didn't pull the trigger on Cobb like they could have. And finally, they gave the belt to PCO, which I think they could have done.
And it was a
4
double
months
whammy.
ago, 5
It
months
wasn't
ago.
just the guys that left last year, but it was also kind of like the New Japan relationship this year. Like you didn't
Right down
get
the
that
toilet, yeah.
that crossover that that was a big part of Ring of Honor the last couple of years. Like there
Last
was
5 years.
You could go to the Ted Reeve Arena and see Tetsuya Naito, and this year, you really had to double down and focus on your key guys this year, and you lost some big ones last year, and it was. And it's been a struggle just with all the other factors.
That's not even getting into the business of how they're running their company, right? Whether it was the nonsense with Bully Ray and the fan, allegedly, what's happened
all
with
the
their
stuff
women's
lately.
Yeah, like
it's been a really bad year overall for Ring of Honor, and I think that the first 3 months it was kind of this mirage because you had Madison Square Garden to look to, but we all knew there was going to be life after Madison Square Garden, and then it's like, okay, then the company is really on the clock because now. That's when reality sets in.
But they had the chance at Madison Square Garden to make an impression, to pull the trigger on something like giving Skrull the belt and making their fans go home happy. They didn't.
Any other thoughts?
How did you feel about the pay-per-view? Did you like it?
It was fine.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, like you said, it was a relatively easy watch. It was about 3 hours of pay-per-view. There's no reason to go back and, really revisit it for someone if they don't have the interest in the product.
Well, let's go revisit the phone lines.
Our man
that way
Neil,
of interested.
Our man Neil, what's going on?
Hi guys, and it's very nice to say hi to you, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good, thanks. What a stacked weekend of content on Post Wrestling. The David Starr interview, the double header, Rewind to SmackDown, UFC 245, and I woke up this morning to the great WH Park at Thunderstruck, which I thought was one of the most accessible of the series,
Yes.
being the match with Tyler Breeze from Takeover Brooklyn.
That match is free, by the way. Breeze versus Jushin Liger, which is the subject of this week's Thunderstruck. So you can find the link to the match as well as the podcast itself at postwrestling.com.
Yeah, I don't have a great deal to say about TLC. I think you guys have said it all. Really, it's never a pay-per-view I look forward to that much or have great expectations for. When you have all these gimmick matches that are sort of shoehorned into storylines, and as Mike said earlier, sometimes with a day or two before, these days with SmackDown on Friday, the angle is set up 2 days before a pay-per-view that has tables, ladders, and chairs in its name. It's just it's a bit lame, really. But I would like to mention something that caught my attention from Into the Fire, and that's that these old school character promos also give us some really fun moments and some really good comedy segments. You already mentioned it earlier on, but I mean, it gave me a massive, a real belly laugh, and even remembering it today made me laugh. Was the question mark in Aaron Stevens' pre-match part. I mean, the Mongrovian flag ceremony, and you've got to see the flag, John, and then
I want that flag coming up in that arena, sorry, that studio. I want them to hang it with the other one.
Oh yes, they have to hang it,
right?
Yeah, they've got to get it hung, and then the rendition by question mark of the Mongrovian national anthem, which I wouldn't want to spoil, but it's it's bound to be on YouTube or somewhere. But there's it didn't really have words. It's just him grumbling in a really low register. And there were guys, you could see these people in the background putting their hands over their hearts and stuff. It was hilarious. And it just made me think, I haven't had a proper belly laugh like that from WWE in ages.
No,
and I think it's because of Vince's idea of comedy is a guy pissing his pants or men dressed in drag for that Lashley sister thing.
It's funny because sorry to interrupt you, but I never really liked comedy in WWE in the past. And, as Foley always kind of said about never drawing, but man, like there's a good sense of comedy to the NWA stuff, and it doesn't seem out of place in the product.
Not at all, yeah. And I think WWE could do more with a bit of natural funny. They have funny guys.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Kevin Owens will often raise a laugh in the .com segments, but they're not scripted. They're not really canon.
it's kind of like, I think what I connect with the NWA sense of humor, in particular like the Tony Falk commercials, things like that, is that like they're clearly not making comedy for everybody. They're not making it accessible for a USA audience. You know, a great deal of people that watch it either hate it or don't get it at all. But for some reason, like that's the type of stuff that if you do understand it, you really like it. And unfortunately, like the WWE and you know, a show on Fox or USA is really not the space to take risks like that. And that's why you get such watered down shit.
What's interesting is that as we had the lead up to AEW, and there was so much concern that you can't put Being the Elite on television, and this concern that that's what AEW would be. And in watching it, and it kind of really hit me just over the last week when they did the Joey Ryan Wrestler's Court segment on Impact. Like, Impact to me is the most influenced by Being the Elite. If you want to look at the Johnny Swinger character, the throwback, an entire episode based in 1983, like that to me, like they have taken, and that's what Impact is just trying to scream at the side of the road to get everyone's attention by just doing wacky stuff, doing stuff that's going to go viral among wrestling fans. And that's like, they to me have a real tone of going like the Being the Elite style, where it's almost as much we're writing for the talent that what they find funny, we find funny, hopefully our fans find funny.
So Neil, who's your favorite character on in Power?
Question mark.
Question mark.
It's just, yeah. I just find it I find that whole thing hilarious. Yeah, it's so silly, but it works.
It's silly, yeah, and it does work in that world.
Thank you so much for the call, Neil, as always.
You're very welcome. Thanks for taking it. See ya.
Should we power through some forum feedback before we wrap this up? Yes. Mike has to probably wake up in like an hour. So we start off with Brandon from Oshawa. He has two questions here. One about if Zelina and Andrade split up, who would you like to see Zelina placed with? Or do you think this is all just ultimately the two are together still?
I think the two are still together.
I think they work really well together. Yeah. I would worry about Andrade without having somebody with him. So.
I don't think she's had her moments to shine as much in the main roster yet. Either.
I feel both splitting up. I think it would harm both of them unless you had a solid idea for where Zelina goes.
Well, I mean, I feel like they're teasing something perhaps with Carrillo and Zelina, but I don't really like that pairing. I like her way more as a heel. I really like her with Andrade, so I hope it's just a tease.
And then he also asks that if WWE went Lucha Underground and delved into a time travel angle with Daniel Bryan's past self coming to the future for some reason.
I like it. This sounds good.
Is there any way you guys could accept a story like this on WWE television, or is that too out there? So this would be Daniel Bryan from the past showing up today in the present.
Like a time traveler.
No.
Okay, why?
So first of all, why? Like, what advantage? Like, what would be different about Daniel Bryan from 2010? Like,
would he be a vegan?
He would have less concussions.
Yeah. He doesn't have a kid.
Would he be any better of a competitor? Like, what physically? What would be different?
I mean, I guess you're still assuming that Bryan Danielson will be playing the part of, right?
Yeah.
So.
Will he wrestle any differently? No, I don't think so.
I think you could. I think you could get him to kind of go back to like the ROH days as the American Dragon. This is a guy that can change his style, right? That can go completely like submissions and mat based.
I don't think the WWE audience would recognize that. Secondly, like you would have to have an inevitable face-off with Daniel Bryan versus Daniel Bryan.
No. That's like a paradox. That'll like things will blow up and stuff.
How somebody? Do
you remember when there was two Undertakers?
So wait a second. So is Daniel Bryan de-aged or is he actually coming back from the past?
Coming back from the past.
So then that means there's a Daniel Bryan that exists in the present.
Yeah, but they can't meet up.
Why not?
Because it's a paradox. Have you seen Back to the Future?
Okay. Yes, I have. They should meet up, but that doesn't mean they won't.
This is completely ridiculous, but it could be entertaining.
Okay, John from Chicago really didn't like Aleister Black's trunks. He thought it looked like he shit his pants.
They were odd, especially with that black spot that was on the back. I think there was supposed to be like an idea of one of his tattoos, but you couldn't see the details.
Well, we know why. Anyway, I don't even want to.
Maybe it was to compliment his family portrait.
God. Andrew from Cape Breton says, I have to give a few points for the show considering I was able to watch it on Chromecast for the first time in months. The biggest issue coming out of the show now is Kairi Sane and how she may have wrestled a good chunk of the match with a concussion. I'm not sure when it would have happened, but she seemed out of it for a while. The main event was sloppy around the end, but I thought the start of it seemed pretty innovative. One major issue tonight, though, was some of the matches felt kind of boring, especially the hardcore matches. Honestly, Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy was the match that stood out the most of the night, and it was a straight-up singles match.
I think that's a polarizing match because I thought it was very, very well worked. It just, to me, when you have that little enthusiasm, I think that really takes things down dramatically. Prakash here from Michigan says his match of the night was Black versus Murphy. I would love to see these two form a tag team. Speaking of tag teams, I love the opening match of the main card, but I would have loved to have seen the Revival win the title. I want to see the Revival on a long reign. Rest of the card was just there. Gives it 5 out of 10.
Jamie says, odd show that started well before hitting a massive brick wall. While it feels everybody worked hard, the mix of odd storylines and wrestlers who seemed to mesh poorly, and the main event that seemed to just fall apart for some reason. I also can't recall a show that ended with 4 straight babyface losses.
That is true. Yeah, they went very heavy on the heels. And even flipping Reigns and Corbin with the women, it didn't mean they were sending people home happy.
It tells you this is really sort of like a mid-tier show that's only meant to connect one show to another and not really
build up some heels for babyfaces to come back.
Not meant to bring any resolution at all.
Nas from New York City, not the rapper. Glad I tuned in on time for Andrade and Carrillo. Excellent match. Black versus Murphy was so-so, but the crowd was embarrassing. An NXT crowd would have easily taken that match to another level. New Day and Revival was good as well. I really enjoyed everything with Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan. The Miz played his part well too. I'm genuinely intrigued to see what they do next. And I know I loved a lot of the creativity in the main event. The rope pull to the finish was quality, but I'm hearing that Kairi was fighting with a concussion. Okay, I'm a little bothered. I hope she's okay.
It does make you wonder if everything went flawlessly according to plan, how that match might have went. Because I agree that there was a lot of creativity I think they put into it, but unfortunately the execution, for whatever reason, obviously a concussion and who knows what else, just didn't really come to fruition.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially, yes. Thank you. Luke from Quebec says, I really hope Kairi is okay. She definitely looked concussed, and I'm shocked they didn't take her out of the match. Seems very irresponsible from the officials when we could all see she was off. That match ended up being extremely sloppy, which is very unfortunate. I really think Bray Wyatt is a once-in-a-lifetime talent and is underappreciated. I love that they're having him wrestle as himself. It keeps the Fiend special and adds depth and versatility to the character and his feuds. New Day and Revival was excellent, as was Murphy Aleister. Everything else was boring.
And last one here is Nick from Lansing. I thought it was a pretty enjoyable show with a few low spots. The first 2 matches are the contenders for match of the night, and I personally enjoyed the Bray Miz match more than I think a lot of people will, highlighted by Bryan's return. I was thrilled to see Asuka and Kairi get a main event match. I thought it was a ton of fun when they tied Becky to a ladder like it was a 20s silent movie. Are they filming an empty arena match with Roman and Corbin as the fans file out tonight? Probably not, but they're certainly building to something. I think we're going to get like a... First of all, like 10-man tag or something coming out of this, maybe for TV, building to something like that. And then ultimately, whatever this payoff is to Roman and Corbin at the end, do you think they could stretch that to the Rumble, or do you think both will be just figured into the Rumble itself?
A match itself?
I think they got to both be in the Rumble.
I think they're going to do
That's another 5 weeks of this.
I think and then Corbin throws Reigns out, right?
I think they're doing a match. I think you're going to get a Roman singles win with some dog food type of thing.
He does need to win. He needs a definitive win, and then maybe someone has to eat dog food.
Can't you just take like a steel cage match on like SmackDown and get this over with?
I was ready for this to wrap up tonight. I thought tonight was like a good time to like wrap this feud up. I'm kind of
if you go with the steel cage and just no one can get in. It's 1-on-1. This is the end of it.
It's got to be dog related.
The thing is, it's like they're really low on heels at the moment, and that's why like Corbin, like he's their utility guy for Roman at the moment. Like you don't even have like Ziggler and Rude are just kind of the.
Rude's not there.
Yeah, Rude's not around. Bray is obviously not going to be near Roman Reigns at the moment.
It's got to be dogs in the cage, guys. Okay, Kennel from Hell. Let's campaign for it. One last piece of feedback about NWA Into the Fire I want to get to from Ben from Vancouver, who says, solid show overall with the high points being the main event and Skrull's surprise entrance. The only bad match was the women's tag, which I thought was very sloppy. Melina just did not belong. Thunder Rosa and Ricky Starks both had great nights and are 2 pieces NWA should be building up. I love Stevens winning, and he's someone that has been a highlight every week he's been on. The Rock and Rolls were over, but I was surprised they retained. Not sure where the tag division goes now. I love the TV title back, but it feels like they already have too many titles. Oh yes, they announced the return of the TV belt. Who do you think would be the right person for that belt? And he suggests Ricky Starks. Do you have a choice, Mike?
No, I kind of thought that they would probably end up bringing someone new in to do some sort of mini tournament.
Right. Yeah. Well,
but Starks isn't a bad choice. No,
I liked Drake and Anderson too. Good choice for an opener, but I don't want them to continue. Drake should be pushed to the main event. The main event was good, but basically nothing was resolved, which made it feel like a glorified power main event. Why did Camille even come down? But the length of the show and its pace was good. I'll probably check out the next show. 6.5 out of 10.
All right. Well, there we go. That is our TLC post show. Mike, thank you so much for coming over, watching all of TLC, putting up with my bad jokes, and then sticking around to do the post show with us.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a lot of fun.
We will be back on Monday night with Rewind to Raw. They've announced AJ Styles and Randy Orton for Monday night, so that's the only announcement we have.
Interesting they put that there and not the pay-per-view, but I mean, you would expect maybe a non-finish or something.
Yeah, and, you know, wanting something to drive people to TV as well, to spread things around, I guess. So we'll see what they do with that. And, yeah, NWA Power is back on Tuesday. So will be interesting to see if they get kind of a bit of a bump coming off the pay-per-view, if there's, like, a renewed interest of people that, you know, maybe had trailed off during the season that come back for this episode on Tuesday. But, man, I was worried. I was like, what wrestling are we going to watch? And thamually, there's
something every day.
Dude,
it's
this
amazing.
weekend was crazy between the UFC and ROH. And how much did you watch? How many hours in total?
You know, not as much as you would think, because I watched Final Battle. Yeah. I didn't watch SmackDown, so I didn't even try that. What really threw me was UFC going 8 hours on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So that was, I mean, I saw the potential with those 3 title fights. I thought Amanda Nunes, that could be an early finish, but I was expecting distance fights for the last 2, and I mean, they pretty much were. Usman finished him in the 5th round. I would definitely recommend that fight if either of you want to check that out. It was a phenomenal fight. But yeah, this weekend I saw UFC, Ring of Honor, TLC, and I had to watch SummerSlam 2015 in there as well. So
rewind away, everybody. Will you be joining us for that in SummerSlam 2015?
If you want me to, I'm here for it.
We should have Mike come on for a
should.
week at some point. Mike, the door is always open. It's always great to have you on. So
thanks a lot.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun doing it with the 3 of us.
At Scarborough Dad on Twitter.
Thanks.
Yes.
I had a blast, guys. It was amazing.
So we are going to sign off. Thanks to everyone that tuned in live or is listening to this by whatever means possible.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. Let me give some shout outs. Eric Marcote's in here. Hansi, Brandon Deeb, Ruheven Khan. By the way, they let us know that so Drake Maverick and his wife did a quote unquote wedding segment recently on Raw. But the last real wedding, potentially, actually, I didn't see anybody else respond, but might have been as far back as Raw 1000 with Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee.
And AJ,
so, yeah, like in an actual
ceremony,
actual one, because
the
Drake one was very entertaining with the mysteriously disappearing 24/7 title.
I'm sure it'll come back at some point.
Yes, we can only hope. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you. We are tuning out, and we will see you on Monday night.